Nicki Minaj goes to the United Nations and gives a speech in support of Christians in Nigeria and has pissed off black activists and black people because they think that she's aligning with Trump. And we're going to talk about all that next on It's Culture. Let's get it.
We gon' always win. Promise that that's not a promise. Yeah, that is a threat. You know that I promise to bring the team commas. When the whole team win, that's when you flex. Win. And I'ma do it again. Watch me win. Then watch me do it again. Tell 'em I can't take no loss. My team hold no L's, no.
Welcome back to It's Culture Podcast. My name is Mark. And tonight, as I said in my intro, Nicki Minaj appeared at the United Nations, where she delivered a speech about the religious violence in Nigeria. She framed the issue as a major human rights crisis, specifically highlighting attacks on Christians. And before we get into this, I just want to play a video from BBC. This is from BBC News because I think it brings context into why Nicki Minaj said what she said. I'm going to also show y'all the video of Nicki Minaj, a little brief synopsis of what she said, and then all the backlash that she got. But before we get into that, if you could do me a favor, hit that like button, share button, subscribe button, hit the notification bell so I can get all the updates. And as I say on all my shows, thank you all for supporting. Let's get to it.
Let's go to Nigeria, where gunmen opened fire on worshippers in a church in the town of Aruku on Tuesday evening, killing 2 people and abducting several others. Local media say armed men identified by residents as bandits stormed the Christ Apostolic Church in southwestern Kwara State during an evening program, shooting the pastor and rounding up worshippers at gunpoint. Meanwhile, in the northwestern state of Kebbi, authorities say a team of soldiers, police and volunteers are combing forested areas to pursue the gunmen who abducted 25 girls from a school on Monday and shot dead their teacher.
All right, so Christians are being attacked, Muslims being attacked, they being abducted, these kids, these girls are being abducted. You heard the news from BBC. So this stuff is going on. This stuff is actually going on. So let's listen to what Nicki Minaj actually said at the UN. Let's take a listen to what she really said.
In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned. Families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly, simply because of how they pray. Sadly, this problem is not only a growing problem in Nigeria, but also in so many other countries across the world, and it demands urgent action.
Okay. She said it deserves, urgent action. That's what she said. Faith is under attack is what she really said, and we cannot stay silent. That's one of her quotes. She referenced the burning of the churches, the families being displaced, the community under threat, and she positioned this as not just a Nigerian issue, but a global human rights priority. And we have seen this across, people being persecuted and killed and bombed. We saw it all in Gaza. So she's making a global push. But for some reason, because Nicki Minaj was invited by Donald Trump to go to the UN and make this speech, it got all these black folks, black activists all over the country want to give their little diatribes as if she's being bamboozled and led astray. This moment has triggered some heavy debates. Because Nicki thanked the U.S. political figures, including Donald Trump, for prioritizing this religious freedom concerns in Nigeria. That line instantly became the headline because a celebrity of her size stepping onto the UN stage and then stepping into geopolitical politics, and that's a major cultural marker. It also raises some eyebrows, right? Because it frames that she might be presented in a way that it might do something to justify the U.S. international involvement, right? Because Trump has already came out and said that he wants to send troops into Nigeria. And because of what Trump said about this, I think that's the reason why all these critics stepped up. You know, you had Amanda Seales, as I said, she had a whole Instagram post where she wanted to be on camera, and basically she had a lot to say, as she always do, and she didn't hold back. So let's take a listen to what Amanda Seales said.
Nicki Minaj working with Trump admin on plight of Christians in Nigeria. Either she's getting a check, or she was MAGA the whole time, or she's genuinely thinks that she's doing something good, which, by the way, is why y'all need to have people around you that know more than you. And by y'all, I don't just mean celebrities. Everybody. Everybody should have people around them that they can consult with, that think differently than you, that hold you in a place of values. Just so you understand what's happening here with the plight of Christians in Nigeria, there is a plight of Christians in Nigeria. However, the U.S., what does that have to do with the United States? The United States is using this as a ploy, as a proxy, to find their way into Nigeria so that they can then find their way into the Sahel states of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, who, as you know, are coming together to begin a process of Pan-Africanism on the continent. They are taking back their resources from France. They are saying we are going to build our own infrastructures. This undermines the global empire's goal, and so they have to try and shut it down. Now
All right. So y'all, Amanda Seales said a lot in that. She's saying that the United States is not really looking at it from that perspective. They don't care about these Christians in Nigeria. They want to use it as a way so they can get in and infiltrate Burkina Faso, Mali, because they are rebelling against France. And this whole global conspiracy is that the United States wants to take over the world. And then she said that, which was funny to me, that she said that you need people in the room that's smarter than you to be your friends. But Amanda Seales, in her own way, thinks that she's the smartest person in any room that she goes in. So it's kind of, it's kind of ironic that she would say that, considering the fact of how she goes about that she's the smartest person in the room. So she feels that Nicki Minaj or other people need to have other people who are smarter than you in the room who can educate you. Now, with Seales posting her reaction, I think, she called out Nicki for this because I think that possibly she felt that she was promoting a narrative that oversimplifies what's happening in Nigeria. Like she said in her video, she argued that Nicki Minaj may unintentionally be supporting the United States political agendas rather than presenting the full picture, right? Celebrities need to be careful because your platform can be weaponized if you don't fully understand the geopolitical layers behind what you're endorsing. Now, her position wasn't don't speak up, right? She didn't say don't speak up. It was more like, if you're going to go speak at the UN, you better know how deep this story goes. And to a point, the Nigerian conflict is much more complicated than just Christians being persecuted. Now let's zoom in for a second. Like, really, because Nigeria is complex religiously, ethnically, politically, and geographically. Yes, you got Christian communities, and they have been targeted, but so has the Muslim communities. And like y'all heard in the video that I played earlier, many of these attacks are driven out by criminal networks. They got land disputes going on. They got resource conflicts, ethnic rivalries. It's not solely on religion. Like, Nigeria is messed up, right? They're messed up. But this is where the nuance matters. when a global celebrity makes it sound like one religious group is the sole victim, it can create a simplified narrative that politicians then use to justify military action or foreign intervention, because we know how our government gets. And the critics of Nicki Minaj, they worry that her speech, intentionally or not, may directly feed into that narrative. I'm going to say that again. Nicki's speech, intentionally or not, may feed directly into that narrative that is something bigger going on. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's for y'all to debate. But it's true that anytime that the U.S. begins framing international crisis through a religious persecution lens, that next step can be, foreign policy actions, which is what our government normally does. So basically, Seals was telling Nicki to be aware of the room you're in, and a UN speech isn't Instagram Live. And, going into these spaces, and I've been before the UN and testified about some things, it does have global consequences. And I'm not on Nicki Minaj's level, but I am an activist and I do fight for my community. And I have spoken, on behalf of my community. But I guess this is where I'm torn at. This is where I'm torn. Because I don't think Nicki Minaj went there as a supporter of Trump. I think that she really, really deep down in her heart went there as a supporter of freedom of religion. And she said that in her speech. I didn't play it, but she said that this is not about taking a side or being on a political aisle. But people like activist Tamika Mallory are going to make it seem like that, right? Because she posted this. For the record, Nicki Minaj may not realize yet, but aligning with Donald Trump and his evil plans has consequences. As he turns his attention to Nigeria, there will be exploitation, resource theft. Innocent Nigerians will be harmed. Trump has a pattern. He uses black culture for cover while pushing policies that hurt black people here and abroad. Unfortunately, that sister will be tied to the harm, and history will remember who stood beside him. Now, I don't know how much I agree with that. Because people like Tamika Mallory, they will sit up here and go to war for these Democrats, and they know damn well that Democrats haven't done jack shit for black folks either. Internationally or nationally here in the United States, they don't give a damn about us either. None of these politicians really give a damn about the plight of black folks. Don't matter if you if you're a black American or part of the diaspora. But we are seeing this rise of celebrity Democrats. Over the last decade, we've seen artists and actors and athletes and influencers stepping into this political space. Sometimes they raise important issues. Other times they get criticized for lacking depth or being used symbolically. Depending on what side of the aisle you land on, whether you are liberal or a conservative, if a celebrity speaks out from the other side of the aisle, you're going to go. They have a way of criticizing this. And the message gets so damn jaded because you're not paying attention to what exactly is going on. There are people being hurt in Nigeria because of their religious beliefs. Amanda Seales said, what does that got to do with the United States? Well, it got a lot to do with the United States, to be honest. See, this is where, if you haven't been in the military, this is where, if you haven't been on that international stage and understand what the United Nations stands for and what it's about, this is where, Amanda, you need to have somebody who's smarter than you in the room to tell you and educate you on these situations, because y'all, everything that comes out, it always framed based on what they hear on CNN or some BS. All right. There have been kids being taken. There have been girls snatched up by these terrorists terrorizing these people, and y'all wonder why they're leaving their countries, fleeing their countries, coming to the United States, going to Europe, because they're fleeing all this persecution. And we, as the United States, who has taken on this mantra as being the police of the world and the democracy, we go to these countries to help try to liberate things. I've been in missions in Rwanda. I've been in missions in Lebanon. Been in missions in Afghanistan. Been in missions all across this world for the United States Navy. Y'all can probably see some of my stuff back there on the wall back there. Because this is what the United States government does. These countries, they ask for our assistance. We go in, we try to help out. Sometimes the government is corrupt, so the regime is taken out and then a new regime is put in. We can't be silent on injustice anywhere. Because injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And these governments are corrupt. They do things, and these people are being persecuted for their religious beliefs. This is definitely a problem that the United States would be involved in because it's at the United Nations. And if the United Nations wants to get involved, guess who's getting involved? The United States. Nicki Minaj stepping onto this UN stage is the perfect example of how, moments impact broader culture. We can look at it from a few things. We can look at influence and accountability because these celebrities have massive reach. But that influence comes with responsibility because when you speak on global issues, your words don't just trend. They signal policy stances. And I guess that's where Tamika Mallory was going because she said, Nicki Minaj going there was aligning with Trump. And then there's the narrative power, right? That the stories get amplified. I'm doing a video responding to it. So obviously, this is going to determine public perception. Because if the narrative is Christians in Nigeria are under attack, then the whole communities who also are under attack are going to be suffering. They're going to disappear into this story because, like I said, you heard in the intro video, Muslims are being attacked too. And then I think, we look at political alignment, and I guess people got pissed off because Nicki praised Trump and the U.S. policies at the UN. And I guess because she thanked Trump, I guess that accidentally aligns her with his entire political framework, even though she said this is not about politics. This is not about picking a side. This is about the issues that's going on in Nigeria. But hey, because Trump is the president. Now, because he's the president right now, I guess that's the issue. But I would caution and say, if Trump wasn't president and this was Biden, and Biden had got Nicki Minaj to go to the UN to speak out in regards to Christians in Nigeria, would Amanda Seals and Tamika Mallory have anything to say? Would they have posted anything on their page? Would there be millions? Would it be thousands, right? Thousands and thousands of comments from black folks all over the country that's saying that, she all messed up and this is what happens. But would this be going on? If Biden was the president, I guarantee you, and I emphatically believe in my heart of hearts, 100% they wouldn't have said nothing. Besides, either they would have just, or if they would have said something, they would have been praising her. They would have been praising her. Anybody disagree, put it in the chat. Because that's what I believe. And as a content creator like me, moments like this are a reminder, right? People trust what they hear online. So it's our job to unpack these stories fully and not just repeat the headlines. That is why discussions like the one I'm having with you all right now matter. They matter. Because we have to be able to eat the meat, spit out the bones, and get full on what it is that's actually going on. Nicki Minaj is not in Nigeria. Tamika Mallory is not in Nigeria. Amanda Seals is not in Nigeria. They're right here in the United States. So we can go by what we just saw on the BBC News, because that is they reporting live and direct from what's going on in Nigeria. So how do we frame your opinion then? How does it frame your opinion? When the news is saying one thing, but our people who for some reason have been aligned to Democrats so long that they don't see themselves as anything else but a damn Democrat. They've been aligned eating. They've been aligned so long that their minds are completely jaded. Everything Trump is just bad, right? Everything. He can't do nothing right. But they remain silent when Biden didn't do a damn thing for 4 years. Those same people that want to talk now were out here doing absolutely zero. They wasn't out here fighting on behalf of our people, wasn't fighting on behalf of anybody. They sat back and, they were happy with being invited to the White House to go to some damn gala, put on your black tie, and go eat a meal and sit there and clap and take photos. They never speak out on the real issues. They only speak out. Have y'all noticed though? And this is a one. Have y'all noticed that most of these black activists only speak out when conservatives are in office, but you don't hear nothing from them while Democrats got the control? Why is that? Because, Amanda, they are getting checks, okay? They're the ones that are getting the checks cut. We know that. We saw it when Kamala was running for office. We heard about these checks being cut. So they got their biscuits buttered. So they can just go out and not say anything. But now that they're not in power, all of a sudden now they want to come back online and give all these big old dissertations and diatribes to their followers. Got you out here confused, and you just, you don't do no research. You're not following the news. You haven't done anything besides read a headline and go with it. Nicki Minaj goes to the UN because Trump told her to. That's all you see. So here's my big takeaway on this one, right? Nicki Minaj's UN speech wasn't just another celebrity moment. This was a collision of culture, politics, religion on a global stage. And Amanda Seales, her response wasn't just shade, but I also think it could be like a warning, because the stakes are higher when you're on that world stage. Tamika Mallory, I don't know. I don't even know your angle. But I like to see you have this same fight, this same vigor when the Democrats are in office and they ain't doing nothing for black folks. So I want to hear from you guys. Do y'all think that Nicki's speech was powerful and necessary? Or do you think Amanda Seales and Tamika Mallory had a point about the dangers of oversimplifying the situation? I love to hear your comments about this. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, Coaching Nation, let's keep it coaching.